There we are.
Nice. Awesome.
All
That
right.
is much less delay than on Twitch.
Can you hide Deanna and Colin though? Hi everybody. Give us 1 second.
Yeah, we're just experiencing. I know not really technical difficulties, but got that, Patrick? Oh man. Well, we can vamp. There we go. We lost our guests. They actually left.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hi everybody watching out there in La La Land. So we are Science the Show. It's been a minute since we've done a show for everybody, but a quick reminder on who we are and why we do what we do. We, the three hosts, I'm Alex, above me is Dylan, and then Dr. Russ in the very top. We love science. We think science is amazing, but we think it's really hard to talk about. Either it gets boiled down and you don't really get anything of substance, or it's far too confusing and it's got this sort of ivory tower mystique around it. And we don't believe that. We think that scientists are people just like you and me, or just like Dr. Russ. And so we try to make a show that uses comedy and science to teach not just about like what science is, but what matters to us in life. So that's why we're doing the show that we're doing. Today we have two really amazing scientists instead of doing Russell and then a guest scientist. So in a little bit we're going to bring them out, but first just a little bit of housekeeping. Dylan, do you want to go over ground rules for the chat and stuff like that?
Yeah. Hi, people who don't know me already. I'm Dylan. I'm one of the co-hosts, like Alex said. As far as like ground rules and stuff, it's pretty standard internet behavior. Let's just start with no slurs and keep it there. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're vulgar. I'm gonna say fuck probably a lot, and it's okay. But I think this is at the end of the day, this is a scientific discourse, even if it is silly. So let's just try to keep it polite, not serious. Serious is literally the antithesis Alex just said as his intro, and that's not my point.
Polite, maybe?
Yeah, that polite. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Russ, any last words before we get this show on the road?
No, I'm super excited to talk about viruses today.
Cool.
Yeah. Russell loves when we do these shows because he gets to just be a co-host instead of lifting the entire show by himself.
I mean, I also like Russell as a co-host because then I don't feel as tormented by whatever thing. I think we know each other too well, and so he doesn't respect my boundaries. I'm kidding.
He just wants to push you to the edge of your limits, Dylan. He wants to see how far you can go.
Cool. Yeah, you want to bring out our first guest, though?
I do, yeah. So our first guest, Colin Coleman, is a third-year graduate student out of Portland, Oregon, who really should be writing a grant right now, but is happy procrastinating here with us tonight. Everybody give a virtual round of applause for Colin. There he is.
Hey. Oh, cannot hear Colin right now.
That's all right. Nope, we got nothing on you. Are you muted, Colin?
You might have muted yourself.
Colin is muted. Unmute yourself, sir.
Are you muted on Skype?
He's muted on Skype, yeah.
I think that's the button that you click. Can he also not? Boy, yeah, it looks like I see Colin muted in Skype. So you can't unmute Colin?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for giving us patience.
No, I know.
There
you go.
Mic
No,
check,
we knew you
mic
could hear
check.
us, but like I didn't
I
want
had
to.
I had to make you guys sweat a little bit, you know.
I'm very sweaty.
It was
You
weird
missed-
because No, I was like, I only know one button on your screen right now that solves this problem, and so I don't know how to do.
Fair.
But
That's fair.
cool.
Listen. I'm here to test the limits of your show infrastructure, and you guys are passing. So as a scientist, I have to work through all the variables. So
we appreciate that.
Yeah, and to Dylan's point, I'm sure Russell agrees, and Deanna will agree that scientists probably use the word "fuck" a lot, as much, if not more, than other professionals. So yeah, it could get spicy. So viewer discretion advised. But anyway, yeah, welcome from rainy Pacific Northwest, home of the Huckleberry, home of the Sasquatch, home of grunge music. Yeah, I'm
That's actually
to
what a
talk-
dope shit right there. That's
Yeah.
It's a
list.
good combination. It's a good trio. Is my screen PowerPoint showing?
Oh yeah, can we pull up the slides, Patrick? Oh, we didn't actually introduce. So we have a new tech guy today. Normally I do this. Before that, it was Jordan. But we have a friend of show, Patrick Sussmilch. He's worked with us before at our live shows, and so he's going to be doing. So if anything goes wrong technically, you can not be mad at me, which is
Patrick's fault.
I was
primo.
gonna say, now I feel bad because I feel like I threw Patrick a little bit on the bus with my
No,
inability to unmute
I was
myself.
gonna say it was his fault, like literally like in seconds. But
That's a mea culpa. Yeah, no. So here to talk about viruses, but I actually want to start by talking about movies. And I've been thinking about reboots a lot. So reboots are kind of like all the rage right now. It's an easy way to make a quick buck, and they sort of go all over the spectrum of quality. So you've got good reboots, like the Christopher Nolan Batman is fantastic. Terrible ones like Fantastic Four. It's technically Fant Four Stick if you read it as it's, which was a decision. It's not just movies. Video games get rebooted. The new version of Doom is excellent. But ironically, before it was a rebooted video game, it was a rebooted movie starring The Rock, which was pre his reboot as Dwayne Johnson. So this has levels to it. But yeah, I want to know what your guys' least favorite reboots are. People in the chat, please, Jen.
oh man,
Yeah.
I feel like we have talked about this so much, and I did not think of a favorite
I
reboot.
have one. So my favorite movie is called Old Boy, and it's a Korean movie, and it's been rebooted with Keanu Reeves. Oh no, sorry, not Keanu
No.
Reeves. Another guy that I don't like that
Another stoic
entire
white man.
movie at all. It's terrible.
Oh wait, that's okay. That's a least favorite reboot. I was gonna say one of my
Least
favorite
favorite.
reboots is the Count of Monte Cristo. I'm pretty sure it's a reboot. The color one. That one's sick. I saw that when I was like 7 or whatever, and I was like, this is my whole life philosophy. It is revenge.
You guys are putting up like high art films, and I have what Doom and Batman up there.
You know what's my least favorite reboot is Disney rebooted Doug. Do you guys remember that?
Wow.
Remember the original Doug?
I
It
love
was-
Doug.
It was good. It was weird. Then Disney rebooted it, and it was just trash. It's poorly animated. They tried to take on topics that were too big for Doug, like to handle eating disorders, which like should be talked about. I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about eating disorders, but Doug just didn't handle it well.
Unbelievably.
I mean, it is
Blue
common knowledge
Speeder.
that patty mayonnaise doesn't age well if you don't keep it refrigerated, right?
Oh my god.
So why are we talking about reboots?
Yeah, I mean, so those were all great reboots. Excellent segue. But there's one that we didn't mention. I think deserves a little bit more attention. It's not a video game. It's actually a medical condition. It's shingles. Shingles is a underappreciated reboot, in my opinion. And I think the trick is because what it rebooted is not the same name. It changed its name after the reboot. So before it was shingles, it was chickenpox. And that's because the virus that causes shingles is the same exact virus that causes chickenpox. Same virus inside your own body. And so I think that needs a little bit more attention. And that perfect segue is what we're going to be. So this here's our golden boy or girl. It doesn't technically have a gender. Varicella zoster virus. I'm going to be calling it VZV a lot. So if I say VZV, that means it is the virus that causes both shingles and the chickenpox. It is the virus. The conditions are shingles and chickenpox.
Question
Yeah.
I asked, but I feel like maybe people in the chat might want to know why is it called? Why is it VZV and not just like Varicella virus and zoster virus?
Right. So medicine loves to make medical conditions sound a lot fancier than they are. It also could just be an age thing, but varicella is the medical term for chickenpox, and zoster is the medical term for shingles. And once they realized that this virus causes both of them, they just took those two conditions, put a hyphen, and then put a virus after it.
One didn't win out.
It's a great acronym to say, though. I'm just
that's great.
Yeah, it's powerful.
But here's an electron microscope image of VZV. It looks like a fried egg, which is pretty dope. I actually have a stuffed animal version of the virus. You can purchase this. Now it's basically just that. Yeah.
It looks like a chicken.
It has the chicken vibe to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Got this as
That's
a
beyond
gift.
me why you own that, but that is interesting.
It is an interesting thing for conversation starters.
If Dylan has learned anything in the course of doing Science the Show, it's just how terrifying scientists are.
Yeah, pretty consistent.
We get a little twisted. But yeah, so this is what the virus looks like, and it is in the herpes virus family, and specifically it's in the alpha herpes virus family. So there's alpha, beta, and gamma herpes viruses. This is an alpha, and it is an alpha herpes virus. And some of its siblings include herpes simplex 1 and herpes simplex 2, which are the viruses that cause the condition that we sort of, colloquially call herpes. So both the oral and the private version of herpes. So it's quite a family tree. You have the chickenpox and viruses that create chickenpox, viruses that create herpes. And what makes these viruses interesting? Well, in order to really dive into what makes them unique in the virus world, I think it's worth talking about what virus normally, like what their game plan is. What's their angle? And yeah, that is a Mandalorian joke.
Well, wait, I missed the. Wait, how was it a Mandalorian joke? Wait, I didn't see season 2.
This is the way that.
Oh, this is the way. Oh, shit.
Every
Okay.
time I make a joke that one of the host chat, every time I make a joke that one of the reference that a host don't get,
Take a shot.
Light them up for it. Yeah.
I've nothing so far, so light me up.
So viruses basically have three main goals, or essentially a series of three goals, and in order for them to survive, and it's infect a host, and then infect the cells of the host. Once they're in the host, once they're in the cells, then they replicate as much as they can. And then once they've replicated a whole bunch, then they use that sort of army of these newly made viruses in an attempt to spread to a different host. And that's through those symptoms like you see, like coughing, sneezing, et cetera. All of the ways we have learned in the past year that viruses can spread from one person to another. And this is the strategy of most common viruses, like the common cold, the flu, COVID-19. They all sort of go in and infect, replicate as much as possible in order to spread. And this is sort of a like fast and loud, get in, get out kind of strategy. And it works for most viruses because they're able. All they need to do is be able to spread. But the problem is that they cause so much commotion that the immune system is obviously just sees them and starts cracking down almost immediately, and it wipes them out. And then you essentially get rid of all the virus in your body. But that, again, that's okay because the viruses have probably already spread to somebody else. Now, herpes viruses, and VZV, our star of the show, has sort of found a different strategy, or sort of adapted that technique in an interesting evolutionary way that lets it sort of that allows it to reboot, essentially. And in order to talk about that, we need to divide the life of VZV into 3 acts, like any good script, like any good film, 3 acts. Act 1 is varicella, or chickenpox, and just like any normal virus, it will infect a host. You'll get infected with chickenpox. If it's through the oral cavity, it'll probably infect the lymph nodes, which is a major immune sort of checkpoint. There, it'll infect your T cells, which is a specific immune cell, a type of immune cell. And then those infected T cells will spread all over your body. And that's why chickenpox appears all over your body. These T cells just go everywhere, and they start causing chickenpox. They start creating these blisters, these lesions full of rapidly replicating virus that just wants to get out and get to another person.
Wait, does virus it's like in the gross little bump thing on you or whatever? Well, I guess I don't know what else.
It's erupting with viral particles, essentially. Yeah.
Wow, I hate that. I don't like that like adjective or whatever verb. I think nothing should be erupting out of a body.
Wait, you said it can infect you through your lymph, I guess, through your mouth. Like it can infect you other ways too.
Yeah, in this, I bring it up because in this this diagram, which is pulled from a very excellent review article about VZV, that is one of the most common ways to get it. But any other sort of exposed surface where it can get inside will also work. But there's many routes to
Can you
different lymph nodes.
define exposed surface?
I'm I'll say fuck all I want, but even I have standards. No, but just anywhere that there's sort of exposed mucous membrane where it can sort of get between the cracks of your external layer.
So that's news to me because I thought that you just got chickenpox by touching someone else with chickenpox, one and done. You have to touch someone with chickenpox and then get it in your nose, eyes, mouth, or south mouth.
Or if you have, cuts, deep enough cuts in your skin and stuff like that, that also works. But yeah, most of the time it's you touch and then you forget to wash your hands and then you touch your face and then there's so many avenues in here for you to get infected.
Got it. Wow.
I had a teacher in the college who started and ended every lecture by saying, "Don't touch your eyes. That's the easiest way to get sick." And I never forgot it.
Damn.
Yeah. Oh, touching my eyes. Okay.
No, it's so good. It's so good. So regardless of how you get it, what avenue, you get infected, you get chickenpox, spreads throughout the body, but it's making a lot of noise. So obviously the immune system's going to fight back. It's not going to just let this happen. And after an extended, not extended, but after a long enough fight in immunology terms, timelines, the virus just gets wiped out, and that's all there is to it. Or is there? See, this is so in post. Oh wait, this is live. I was going to say we put in the dramatic chipmunk sound effect. The dun, dun, dun. So that's only Act 1, and we'll get to Act 2 after this brief intermission. Like any good stage play, we have intermissions.
That rules.
Yeah. So this is Science the Show, and this is going to be Science the Game show within Science the Show, and it's a very simple game. I'm going to basically say what do blank and shingles have in common.
Okay.
And you're going to tell me what they have in common. These are going to be movie reboots, specific movie reboots.
Okay, audience, please play along at home. I want to see if you guys can get it.
There's a slight delay, but yeah, hopefully we can get some. I mean, I'm going to struggle.
So the first one's going to be what do Ocean's 11 and VZV have in common? So I have 3 sort of answers to choose from, but I want to hear, before we give you the easy out, I want to hear some of your just off the cuff answers. But what do you think?
Oh, it's chock full of amazing gets. Just stars out the ass.
What does that even mean? What is
star-studded cast? Ocean's 11. Everybody in it is a winner.
I don't. Did you read the rest of the question? What? That's not even.
Julia Roberts.
I think what Alex means is they're both handsome.
Everyone.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's a guess, I guess. Yeah.
They're both crafty. They're really crafty.
Crafty, yeah. It's like a. There's more than one.
That's not bad. Some of those answers were better than some of the ones I have, but I have A, they both break in and break out without getting caught. B, most people don't know their reboots, and C, they're just both way too attractive.
B. I'm going with B.
Yeah, B. I actually, mostly. Okay, yeah, B.
I forgot to change the text on the second slide, but anyway, the answer is B. They don't know the reboots. It was actually, I learned this. Ocean's 11 is a reboot from a movie that came out decades ago that starred Frank Sinatra in it, which I'm sure, I don't know the average age of your audience, but maybe they're yelling at me. Of course, the original had Frank Sinatra.
I only recently found out as well. A friend of mine was like, "We're watching Ocean's 11, the reboot," and I was like, "They made a reboot? All I know is about Ocean's 9 or whatever." Nope.
Ocean's 1. So it's not A because they do set off the alarm when they break in. So during chickenpox, the immune system does, everything lights up and it has to shut it down. So they don't make a clean, clean getaway. And as far as too attractive, I've seen sexier viruses, but I mean that's kind of subjective.
I like Robin Coleman's answer a lot. Was the original chickenpox made by the Rat Pack?
That's my brother. That's my brother, actually.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well played, Robin.
What up, Robin? So Act 2, latency. So this is the special trick that shingles and other herpes virus have, and it's latency, which is the ability to sort of hide out, lay low, have a latent period between the first and the second or follow-up infections. And so what the virus does is during that initial chickenpox spread, so it's going all over the body, but it also travels to the specific nervous tissue, these specific bundles of nerves that are called ganglia. And these ganglia, if you imagine up and down along your spine, there's going to be these little nodes, these little ganglion nodes just sort of stay all along the spine. And if you imagine the spinal cord as sort of this, the main nervous system highway, these ganglia are sort of like the on and off ramps. So they will relay signals from the brain to, off the spinal cord and on to the skin or to your limbs. And then they'll also take the signals coming from your limbs and take it to the spinal cord, go up to the brain. So important. And somehow, some way, we're still figuring out exactly how, they're able to infect the ganglia, infect these neurons in the ganglia, and just hide out. They just sort of lay low.
They don't do anything. They're just chilling.
So they have to be doing something. That's the trick, because how else, how do they?
Yeah.
Bad joke.
No, they
have to do something, because if they did nothing, then they would, probably
so
die out.
Like, put on like a worker hat and jacket, and then just start moving nervous system information.
That is what most research is trying to do. Like, what types of hats are they wearing? What types of jobs are they blending into before they get the the go aheads to come back on?
So do we all, or like most of the people watching this show, have VZV hiding in our ganglia, pretending to be like the janitor right now?
If you had chickenpox, then most likely yes.
Whoa!
So it is rare that you would get infected with the chickenpox virus, and you wouldn't show chickenpox, and it would go latent. And it is possible, but it's less likely. But if you had chickenpox, you almost most definitely have.
So, as a show of hands, who had chickenpox as a kid?
I actually
this is about to get very dark for a lot of
people. Do not remember.
Get your drinks ready. Or maybe not. We'll get to that. No alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's hanging out, and there is what we have sort of discovered or realized that a major trigger for it to come out of hiding in order for it to make its reemergence, to reboot itself, is immunosuppression. So that's the moment that whenever your immune system is weakened, inhibited, diminished in some way. The most common sources of immunosuppression are old age, stress, and chemotherapy. Chemotherapy, because that's literally what the goal of chemotherapy is to knock down your immune system. And so it's a grim combination, because you can also imagine, just like if you're old and stressed out about having to do chemo, shingles shows up. It's like the prime time.
Oh, we're ready for this, baby.
Yeah, it's gonna get good. It's gonna get good. So it's waiting. Immunosuppressions. You get stressed. You get old.
And then it just throws off its hat and pulls out a pistol and just starts shooting people.
But the dramatic act 2, we have to get that intermission though.
Okay.
Next one is, what do Mulan and VZV have in common?
Oh man.
There's protests that both are being protested.
What does that even, again, like the first guess is like word association at best.
Yeah. It's also good in red.
What they both have a really insanely high kill count.
Oh, wait, it is a war movie. Oh no, wait,
Mulan has the highest kill count of any Disney princess.
Mulan is technically a war movie, and I never thought about that until just now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that was their whole take. Okay, never mind.
Does Mulan kill anybody?
Oh,
so many people.
I mean, she does cause an avalanche, right?
And you don't see those Huns digging their way out of the avalanche. I mean, Huns can't survive pounds of snow.
I got it. Okay, so the first movie, and it's for children. The second movie seemed like it was for adults.
Oh, okay. We've got they both overthrew an empire. They both get down to business to defeat the Huns, and singing when can I finally be who I really am.
I'm just gonna channel my Ben White and just do some stop motion animation with this singing Mulan cool tunes. All great answers. Again, probably better than the ones that I have, but regardless. A is the reboot appears during very stressful times. B, both reboots had a lot of promotion behind them. Or C, they both use way too many special effects. And for context, I'm talking about the rebooted Mulan movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with A on this one.
It is indeed A. It does, stress is a major cause of immunosuppression. It can be with enough stress. It's not B because, again, while Mulan had a ton of Disney hype money behind it and a lot of attention and adverts, Shingles doesn't make a big splash. It just waits, and then just shadow drops the reboot when you least want it.
So a question that actually just came up from Nathaniel here was, how dramatic does the stress need to be to induce a reboot of the virus? Because I've been fucking stressed.
Yeah.
But I haven't gotten shingles yet. But I don't know.
I would say it really depends on, every human is different. So like how stress affects your immune response is different. And that'll even change over your age. So, it's really kind of something that is very you dependent. But ask your doctor.
But one of the things that, I guess when people talk about stress, I think Dylan, you're thinking of Nathaniel and Dylan, you're thinking of an acute event of stress. But stress also accumulates
year count as
over.
Acute.
Well, no. Okay. I'm trying to make the distinction between something that's acute versus long time, and so just being a human with radiation, in the world happening is stress itself, so just living for a long time is also
what you're trying to say is that life itself is a stressful ordeal.
Just existing, not even life. It's just existing.
I think that was Sartre, was it?
Yeah. Existence is hell.
Existence is hell. Matt Groening, Life is Hell, etc. Yeah, they're the same person. No, that's very true. Yes, and when I say stress, it could be it can be environmental. It could be stuff that you don't notice, psychologically, but it could also be psychological stress because psychological stress does dump a lot of specific hormones that'll sort of jack up your fight or flight response, jack up the immune response, and if you're stressed long enough, it'll wear those fire trucks out essentially, and that will sort of leave you a little bit more defenseless. But I would say in general, it really depends on how you are as a human and how old you are, that kind of thing. So no easy answer. So Act 3, the big finale, the fight scene, right, is Zoster. Zoster being Shingles. And so what happens is that it's found the perfect time to make its reemergence, perfect time to drop that reboot. The kids have been clamoring for it for years now. And what it does is it travels from that ganglia, from that bundle of nerves to the skin. It travels along those neurons that are associated with that ganglia and emerges at the end at the skin and creates more lesions, more blisters, more actively replicating virus that forms what we see clinically as shingles.
What's the end game? What? I don't even understand anymore. What is it? Is it just to torment us?
It's the tricky thing about being a virologist is that it has no motive. It does what its little genetic programming tells it to do, and the ones that do it better continue on in evolution. The ones that don't get wiped out, and so it's just this. It's essentially I was gonna say RoboCop, but at least at the end, RoboCop regains its humanity.
Yeah.
But it's just programmed to live. If you want to say viruses are alive, but we can get to that in the Q&A. So it travels to the skin and starts doing shingles. And what's interesting is that, and you can see on this this figure, is that it's only one part of the body. It's only one section of your skin, and that's because it only is able to create these shingles rashes on the area of your skin that's associated with whatever ganglia was hiding out on. So, for example, if it's infected, this ganglia up here, it's only going to show up when it reactivates on this part of my body. And so if you're being a little virus detective, wherever you get shingles popping up, you can sort of pinpoint or at least narrow down which specific ganglia the virus is hiding out in. which is pretty wild.
That is really wild.
Right, yeah, I remember I'm not sure if you were gonna show like a demonstration thing, but it did blow my mind the idea that like I thought virus is where red is essentially, and that is just very much not the case.
No, that is the case though. So where it's popping up, but as opposed to chickenpox where the virus was everywhere, right? Because it could travel a lot better. When it was more able to travel better, but because of how it goes latent in that specific ganglia, it only has access to the roads that will take it to one section of your skin. So they call them dermatomes. So each ganglia is associated with a specific dermatome or region of your skin. And so that's why you'll see people get shingles just in like, a band across your chest or a band on your back or even sometimes on your face because there's ganglia high enough that it will associate to the skin on your face.
Damn.
It's pretty wild.
So is it like, is like the whole life cycle, like you get infected with chickenpox and then while like your body's battling chickenpox, some of the chickenpox like decides to go undercover for however long, like while the body's distracted. And then when the time is right, it comes back out in that specific location where it was like undercover.
Yeah, wherever it was able to make a good hideout in those neurons in the ganglia, that's where it'll eventually it'll pop back out. So it's devious, but again, it's also tricky because again, it doesn't have motives; it just does what it's told. So it spreads so far and just happens to infect the ganglia, and then because of its programming, it just has the ability later on to come back out. It's wild. That's why I love talking about it, even though it's such a grim subject. And speaking of grim subjects, while chickenpox is usually just itchy little rashes and it's just kind of annoying, it's not a huge deal. Shingles, and I will say this as someone who has not had shingles but has heard from people who have shingles, is incredibly painful. And I think a description I heard was that it's like an electrical current under your skin that is incredibly sensitive to touch. So it sounds miserable. Anybody in the chat who's had shingles, please send your most vivid descriptions.
Yeah, shingles pop up.
We want to hear from you about your shingles. But it's really bad. And there's even actually some cases where you will have the shingles rashes and you'll have the pain, and then the rashes will go away, but the pain is still there. And that's called zoster sin herpete. Again, another fancy phrase. And so then you could have the fun of shingles pain without being able to show your boss, no, I have shingles. You just can't see it. So it's messed up. It's messed up. But, so shingles appears, yeah. But luckily the immune system, even though it is suppressed, it will fight back. It will fight back the shingles virus. And, after it, goes toe to toe for a while after the big fight scene, the VZV does, eventually get wiped out, shingles goes away, and all's good.
Yay.
Or is it? So while shingles, most people only get shingles once in their lifetime, it is possible for it to stay, keep its hideout and then come back later in life. It really, again, it depends on the person, depends on the situation, but it is a nasty little virus. So yeah, it's just the gift that keeps on giving after you've received it once, I suppose.
Is there anything you can do about that?
There is, and we'll get to that right after the last intermission. The last one, I gotta leave you one more. So it's not an intermission, I guess. It would be the end credits, the post-credits scene. But what do Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and VZV have in common? Specifically the reboot, specifically the Tim Burton reboot.
This is
equally as creepy.
Equally as creepy. That's pretty good. Oh man, I have no fucking idea. This one is like absolutely beyond me.
We'll just get to the answers. Both are painful to Neither were asked for by anybody, and both remind us that parents have a huge responsibility to protect the health of their children. Which, Alex, goes to your point. All of the correct answer.
That rules. Oh man, yeah, I couldn't think of a single guess.
Go to the takeaway, which is get your shots, get your vaccinations. Both chickenpox and shingles, even though it's the same virus, they have their own vaccines, and that's because they prevent A, you getting chickenpox, and then B, just in case, you prevent reactivation later in life. Chickenpox vaccine first got approved in 1995. Second dose, recommended second dose started happening in 2006. I'm just going to hit some numbers. Census induction incidence down 98%, outbreaks down 95%, outpatient visits down 84, hospitalizations down 93. So it works. It is great. It is included in most of the. I think it's included in the shots that kids need to get before they enter. If you're a parent, make sure you're getting your kids these chickenpox vaccine, because if you don't let chickenpox in, the shingles, also has no chance, right? Because it's the same. Yeah. And one other little note on this: since the vaccine, incidence among infants, so we're talking to babies that are too young to get the vaccine, incidence among infants went down 90%, which really highlights that vaccines are not just important to protect you, they're important to protect all of the little babies that you come in contact with, or just anyone in your community. And so that's a major thing to keep in mind.
Great news to get your vaccination for everyone. Take every vaccine you can get.
It's great. And then we have the shingles vaccine. 1 in 3 people will get shingles in their lifetime, so it's worth getting. It could happen to you. The first vaccine actually came out in 2006, Zostavax, and the problem was it was only 50% effective, but that's fine because it's still 50% better than not having a vaccine. But the newest vaccine, Shingrix, was approved in 2017, and it is more than 90% effective. And it works even better in people over the age of 70, which are like the most high-risk group for shingles. So it's an excellent vaccine. You should get it. The recommendation is any adult over 50 to get 2 doses separated by 2 to 6 months. So get your shingles vaccine no matter what. If you've had chickenpox, if you've had shingles, if you've had Zostavax, just get this shot. It'll prevent you from having a literal electric current under your skin when you're just trying to hang out in retirement. So
can I just ask real quick, do people does shingles kill people?
It's one of those things where shingles itself, I mean, it doesn't kill people necessarily. It's not something that we worry about or doctors worry about necessarily. Combined with other health conditions, probably, because it is taking resources away from your immune system. But it's not generally considered like a lethal disease. But with the type of pain that you would experience, it's it's worth preventing. It is absolutely worth preventing.
Somebody in the chat saying they got shingles in 7th grade after having chickenpox as a kid. So
that's just
for Mike, everybody, get your shot. Colin, we have to move on to getting Deanna out, but anybody who has questions for Colin, hold them because we're going to bring both of our guests back out in a second. So let's get a digital round of applause for Colin, and then Patrick, when you're ready, let's switch our guests.
Yeah.
So our next guest, Deanna Clemmer, is a lab technician with an unhealthy obsession with viruses that borders on the erotic. So please give a round of applause to Deanna.
Hey.
And there, Deanna. Hey, Deanna.
Oh, got it.
Okay. Wait, if you can hear us.
I can hear you guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Did that work? Did I share my screen? Or are you guys looking at absolutely nothing?
We are looking at a black square
logo.
Great.
Oh man. God, fucking shingles, dude.
We'll
talk to Colin about it after.
Okay, wait. Can you guys still not see my screen?
Not yet.
Just a black screen right now.
All right, hold on 1 second.
No worries.
The scariest thing about all of this stuff to me is that there's no need for them. Why do you want to do it? It just makes me so afraid of anything that does things without having a
motivation.
Oh yeah, I just
Okay, can you guys see it now?
Nothing. Do you want to try and flip through slides maybe? See if that changes.
Yes, I can see it. There we go. Great. We're live.
Wait, hold on. Now I can't see anything.
Thank you everybody for being patient with us. We'll have it up in a second.
Okay, you guys can see.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Wonderful, because that would have been me just guessing which slide we're on.
That would have literally been the hardest science show presentation.
I expect an award. No, what I was gonna say is it's really funny because I know that Colin's a 3rd-year graduate student, and you could see how his PowerPoint was so professional, and then there's me, just this lab tech that just kind of throws shit and just to explain stuff. So it's wow, he did all the heavy lifting. I don't have to do nothing. Wonderful. But yeah, I just wanted to get started with a simple question that I've been thinking about for a while, which is like, what is a hero without a villain? And I just want you guys to just think about that for a second.
Just a crazy person? Oh, you said
Yeah.
think about it. Sorry.
It's mostly just like a dude with a lot of issues.
That's just a lunatic. That's just like a
Yeah.
person that
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like, think about like Batman. He would just be some rich dude that dresses up, goes into the night, and just like knocks people's teeth out, right? You know?
He would be
Absolute
the
psychopath.
most well-appointed mugger.
Right. But yeah, so there's kind of like this, you know, constant squaring up that we have with viruses that they or any foreign body, but mostly viruses that just kind of come up to us humans and is like, hey, you're vulnerable, and they just try to get in us and, you know, make us sick. And as Colin was explaining, they just want to survive and replicate and all that. But the reason why I think that that's like, you know, related to heroes and villains is like, we're the heroes, right? Our immune system is naive until we get, you know, a villain and it comes in, and at the end we're triumphant. Or, you know, they always say that in order to change, you need conflict. So it's very good that viruses exist in order to give our immune systems that chance for conflict so that we can grow. And, you know, it'll take more than someone sneezing in our direction to like take us out. But, you know, there's always this, villains and viruses are always seen as the same thing. And that means like viruses are all villainous. But I kind of want to talk about how they're not. But just to punch you guys in the face with like some fun, I have some questions to ask you before we get started. So everybody likes Avatar, at least if you haven't seen it, you're out of your mind. Great show, both, you know, the first season and The Legend of Korra. So I just kind of want to ask you guys a very random question, which is, which one of these villainesses do you think is more like a placenta?
What a weird question I can't even bullshit my way through.
Yeah, no, I got nothing. You really stumped me with this one.
Nobody, nothing.
Well,
Fire.
like, I don't know. They both give life to. I don't know. Is there like fire? Like you create things with fire. So like a placenta creates babies.
Of course, maybe. All right. I know, because that question is like really weird. Like even everyone at work was like, why would you ask people that? It's like, well, you know, gotta have some fun, gotta keep people on their toes. So of all three of these villainesses, I mean, my personal favorite is Azula, but that's a question we can talk about later. Corvira is actually the one that's most like a placenta, and here's why. So we all know that the placenta is, you know, this organ that develops when a woman is pregnant, and it actually provides oxygen and nutrients to the growing baby and kind of removes all the crap that could be flowing into the baby's blood. So the reason why Corvira is like that is, if, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched this, is that after the Earth Queen dies, she kind of rises from these ashes of just absolute destruction. And the protein that actually helps make the placenta actually rose from a virus that was going through the absolute crap, right? So they have that in common. And also we know that the placenta is actually somewhat of a bodyguard for babies. And that way that Quivira provides, you know, safety from bandits, and she allows the people to get food and protection the same way that the placenta provides oxygen and nutrients to the baby. So just imagine that the town that she's protecting is the baby. Yeah. I know how crazy that sounds, but I was like, this is perfect. Anyone who's ever watched Avatar is going to be like, yeah, I can see it. I got you.
How did they figure out the placenta came from like a virus? That's how do you like reverse engineer that?
I don't know. Some guy got high once. No, okay. So
I literally believed that sentence like 100%.
So like every single protein, every single enzyme kind of has like a, if you want to think about it, like a code to it. Like how we as humans have a genome, so do proteins, enzymes, and all that. So you can kind of just backtrack it as far as possible, right? If you're like, oh, well, this looks like a virus that was found. You know, it's like when they like zoom someone's body and they're like, hey, look, they still have hair. Let's look at it underneath the microscope. So you can actually do that kind of thing with like proteins to kind of just like code back. Now, as far as they being like it was 25 million years ago, that is beyond me. I don't know how you can even timestamp that. But I know that you can like look at the makings of these guys and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a long time ago. Like I said, I don't know why they would say like 25 million years or like 10 million years. I'm like, okay, I would have said like, decades ago, but so that's how they know. And I think that it was
Deanna,
very interesting.
Deanna, one second for Dylan, what?
Oh, so on your shared screen, you have me actually on your PowerPoint.
Oh my God.
So there's like, well, there was 2 videos of me. You might be able to drag it off.
I think she got it.
Perfect.
Got it? Okay, yeah, there you go. I thought I was losing my mind. I was like, I can't touch it. It's just there forever.
No,
Sorry,
that's
didn't mean to
fine.
interrupt.
I mean, so now Dylan is the
Yeah,
he's the villain that's most like the placenta. I honestly thought only I could see that, so that's interesting. So yeah, Corvira, everyone. But yeah, so I thought that was just a really funny thing to throw in. To just think about how it's so beneficial that something that is crucial to, our life here on this planet and the protection of babies actually arose from viruses. So that's a really good example of why viruses are not always, the enemies. They can sometimes be a friend in these indirect ways.
So it's like if there was, I don't know, if something happened and this virus never, that gene never got inserted, then like, I don't know, placentas might not exist, or at least not exist in the form that they currently do.
Right. We'd be in some kind of like, I know that we're like babies are already in some kind of like sack, like an egg yolk or whatever, but like we might be like growing from trees. I have no idea. It's hard to say what the, I guess, placenta would be without this protein arising from that virus.
Is here with the fact, not the counterfactual.
Right. So it's like, yeah, it's always like, alternate timelines, different worlds,
right?
Whole different conversation. So moving on, just another really random question that I want you guys to think about. And I also realized that my camera on my laptop makes it look like I'm in like a Snyder movie, right? Like I look like a dark hue.
Hey, it's all good.
Okay.
Oh,
let me switch. Great. Oh, now my power. Up. I'm cheating.
It's all right. Cheat away.
All right. So another question to think about. I love all the villains in Gotham that Batman has. I think that his villains are the best of any in DC and or Marvel, but that is a conversation for another time. So looking at these 3 very D-lister villains from Gotham. Calendar Man, if you guys don't know, he always knows what day it is. Polka Dot Man, he just literally legit takes polka dots off of his outfit and he can make shapes out of them into like vehicles and stuff. And then you have the Condiment King, which is exactly what that sounds like. If you're ever missing mustard, mayo, ranch, he's your
I don't. It just like you could just say I made all these up, and I'd be like, of course you did, because that's ridiculous. That's not a real thing.
Ridiculous. The Polka Dot Man, just fun fact, is supposed to be in the new Suicide Squad movie, so I'm excited. But of all 3 of these very interesting D-listers, which one do you guys think would be the best at clotting blood?
Ooh. Oh. I would say Condiment King.
I'd say Condiment King or Polka Dot Man based on the description of his power, where he could make you could clog a hole at the truck or whatever the hell.
I'm gonna argue for Calendar Man just because he can be very well prepared for like the date that you need to clot blood. So
wow, that is a stretch.
It's a stretch, but I appreciate you trying.
He's gonna be like March 31st, blood.
Yeah.
Okay, so my choice for this would be actually the Condiment King. So, yay! And he would like mustard up a solution, right? So I just kind of want to transition into one of my favorite like positive things about viruses, which are like vectors. And vectors are these viruses that actually can infect us, like get inside our body, but they actually don't cause disease, right? And it's kind of like how the Condiment King is legit a dude in like a spandex suit with like mustard and ketchup on his back, and he just randomly shows up where he doesn't need to be, and he's like not a threat. Like, what is he gonna do? Like, put a random condiment on a hot
Yeah,
dog? Like,
that man just needs to be committed. I don't know,
Well,
like that's all.
I'm having a flashback to like when I first learned about the Condiment King, and he shows up at like a really fancy dinner party or something, and so there's like a bunch of rich people, and so it's like a PETA like protest where he's just like getting people dirty.
yeah, like he's just like, oh, your white shirt has mustard on it, and you're like, bro, get out of here. I have a dry cleaner. Like, so that's why I see him as like a vector. So one of the cool things. Not cool. Hemophilia is not cool. But hemophilia is that disease, that disorder that we all know about where your blood doesn't clot normally. So it's very dangerous for someone who even gets like a paper cut. Mild forms of it are like paper cuts that won't stop bleeding. You hurt your hand. But the more severe versions of hemophilia is like people will have like internal bleeding and it doesn't stop because there's no clotting factors inside their body to stop that. So people could literally bleed out internally. It's a really big issue. It's not one of those things where like millions of people have it, but it's a big enough problem that we should have, try to muster up a solution for it. So they actually use vectors.
Every time you say it, I'm just like, well, okay.
Yeah, right. Like, you're lucky. Like, I get paper cuts all the time. If I had this disorder, I'd be dead. And so, it's a very serious thing that they're trying to rectify in different ways. So a while back, the scientists thought like, hey, let's use a virus and fill it with these clotting factors or things that can help create these clotting factors in someone and just jab it in the arm. So I think of it like the Condiment King is a vector, right? And his ketchup and mustard tanks, which he legitimately has ketchup and mustard tanks on his back, which is what you guys can see like back here. And imagine he's the vector. He's got those blood clotting factors in there and he goes to that, that PETA party, right? And he's like, now you have blood clotting factors and you have blood clotting factors, and he's just shooting ketchup and mustard at everyone. That's essentially what's going on when someone gets injected with these vectors that will help build up their ability to actually clot their blood naturally just with a little bit of a push. So you'll have individuals, before this solution was kind of thought up, these individuals would have to get 2 to 4 shots a week for every week of their life in order to prevent things like that, because you're not gonna not get the shot and then like stub your toe and die, right? So they actually now with this vector shot, it can last from like a couple years to maybe like 5 years, which us as people who can clot normally is like, oh, that's not a lot of time, but to someone who had to go get 3 or 4 shots a week really makes the difference.
That's amazing.
It's one of those things where like it's that part of the movie, probably like Act 3, right, Colin, where you're like, oh, the villain is kind of being the good guy right now, So I thought that was like really cool, because it really shows that viruses can actually be helpful, even though we refer to them as the Condiment King, who just absolutely wrecks every single party that he goes to.
Just a heads up, sounds like you have blown some minds with the placenta information, which I say also happened to me. Another thing, like there's many things in this presentation where I'd be like, you're just making that up. If you were not a scientist, I would be like, you're just trying to mess with me because I am ignorant.
I mean, it's the fact that you guys believe I'm a scientist. I could just be some,
just some person you just didn't want. Let's not sow seeds of discord.
Please, we have enough trying to get people to believe science. Let's not add to this.
Yeah. All right, sorry.
The distrust. Okay. So naturally, in this whole PowerPoint, I gotta go to Marvel, right? And so of all of these heroes, which one of these would seem more of like a spotlight for your brain? I know how weird that sounds, but I will explain it.
Okay, not Groot, because he's like a weed or something. That's all I got. Someone else back me up.
I'm gonna go with Groot just to oppose it.
I feel like Wanda Maximoff, because she can just like I don't know, control reality and make your brain think whatever.
Oh, no hits for Captain Marvel. All right, cool. So, solid.
Her power is so big to me. I was like, maybe she makes light, but then I also was like, maybe that's just like that's beneath her as far as her powers go. Why would she do that? That's
I mean, valid. But okay, so you're right. Wanda, right? And I call this one Wandering About Optogenetics. So, super spoiler alert for anyone who's not watching. I haven't watched episode 9 yet because I'm waiting to watch it with my husband, but I've watched everything up to that point. So, I'm about to spoil a big part of this episode, which is basically it was Agatha all along, right? And so, what I thought was really cool about this is that just a real stripped down version of this. Optogenetics is literally using these light sensitive ion channels to basically regulate neuron activity. So that's basically we're activating ion channels to put a spotlight on something. That is as simple as we're going to get. We can get more complicated, but people will either leave or fall asleep. Don't worry. Right? So think about it like this. If Wanda is an ion channel, right? And for those of you who have watched it and those who haven't watched it, super spoiler, so leave now if you haven't watched it. In that episode,
but come back. Don't just like
just leave. So in that particular episode, we're looking at Wanda as an ion channel, right? And Agatha causes her to open up by going back into her past, right? So in this particular sense, as I said, we're talking about vectors. They also use vectors in optogenetics to study neural activity. So Agatha is the vector, and she is filled with a bunch of goodies that open up ion channels, right? So she is the vector, and she is opening up Wanda to, relook in her past and all that. But the more that Wanda opens up as an ion channel does, the more light is being shown on that particular part of the brain. And the reason why that's important is that if you are trying to study neural activity, like they've been using it to try to, study like depression and things like that and stress, you need to be able to kind of activate a particular part of the brain and not just everything around it. Because people can light up the brain, it's very easy, but literally that whole section will light up and you're kind of at a loss at what you're looking at because the brain looks like 4th of July, right? So they're able to actually use Agatha to make Wanda open up a particular portion so they can study a very small portion of the brain, which is like monumental if we're trying to understand things like Alzheimer's, for example. If we think that it's this portion of the brain and we can like look at someone with Alzheimer's and just highlight that part, they can better understand how that's working.
So you're saying kind of like similarly to, I guess maybe it's different than the hemophilia, but they're using vectors to infect very, very targeted areas of the brain to understand like how that area of the brain is involved in diseases and what have you.
Yeah, and it's gnarly because it's like, well, one, the brain is the only organ that studies itself, right? But also to think that you can look at someone's frontal cortex with someone who has like a dissociative disorder and try to understand better why they have that disorder is crazy. So like in the future, well, this is my future, back when they're going to be started making like designer babies and stuff, is that imagine that you can literally look at one portion of someone's brain, maybe when they're young, and kind of like not necessarily correct, but better understand that person as they get older. Or if you have Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, kind of like highlight that part and maybe even in the future be able to repair it so that things can start going back to normal. And that's my futuristic thing, but studying the brain is amazing because, there's so many things going on. So being able to like really shrink it down, even to like this portion, even though that's still a lot, is extraordinary to me.
So this is all with the virus as a tool.
Yeah, the virus is literally just like, coming out to the party and is like, hello, and like
wow.
Releasing like the things that will make this ion channel open up, and the better that the ion channels open up, the more you can study that because it's literally shining like a light on that portion of the brain.
Amazing.
So, yeah, that makes me very happy because it's like it's good to know that even though viruses, as we all know with COVID-19, are extraordinarily considered to just be bad. But it's like, well, they have their moments, you know. Not always, most of the time they're trying to kick your ass, but these guys are great. So it kind of made me think, like, what is a hero if it doesn't have a villain, right? You think of Batman, you think of Spider-Man, you think of I can't stop thinking about the Condiment King, but you think of like Superman and all that. And I mean, like, with all of these superhero things that come out of the MCU and all of that, and even the Snyder cut of like Justice League, what would the whole movie have been if Darkseid and Steppenwolf weren't trying to take over Earth, right? And it makes you think, like, what are we as humans without viruses, without any kind of foreign body, not only trying to come in and replicate and, you know, indirectly make us sick, but the benefits of them, the things that we learn and the things that we can accomplish by using our enemies, right? I mean, like, so many people don't know that vectors, these viruses that can infect but don't cause disease, are actually pushing forward science by a lot, because viruses, that's their job, to get in there and, you know, explode and expose a bunch of, you know, what's inside of their cells to everything else. So to be able to use that as like a Trojan horse, as we know worked, you know, in history, is awesome. But, you know, it makes you think, like, all right, so do I have a virus as a person? Like, is there something that I do that is harmful or that can be seen as harmful, but that's beneficial? And it made me think, like, what's your virus as a person? So, like, personally, mine is like doom scrolling on like Twitter. And I mean, I will scroll for hours and you find the stupidest stuff. But it also has helped me create like this network with like other scientists. Like back when they were doing, and when they still do, like Black in Neuro and Black in Microbiology. And they have like all these groups where like us as scientists can like talk to each other. And the only reason I discovered that was doom scrolling. So it took about 8 hours, but I did it. You know, and now, you know, I have like this really cool network of people. I mean, like, I never would have discovered like the Science Right. I never would have discovered like you guys if I wasn't on Twitter doing some stupid crap looking at like, you know, Kanye West being Kanye West. So the question to everyone is, what is your virus? What is that thing that is probably really harmful, you know, most of the time, but it has good it has its like good benefits.
While we're talking about this, why don't we bring Colin back out so he can talk about this with us?
Yeah. That's a great idea.
So
Patrick,
you guys can still see me, right? Or am I just staring at a white screen?
We see you. Yeah, do we want to pull Colin back out? We can
There
also
it
ask him what his virus is.
Hey,
Yeah, there he is. Wait, who wants to go first? I don't want to go first. Well, I guess technically Deanna went first. I don't want to go second.
Yeah, I don't know.
A damn good question.
Oh, you're just goofing around.
What is my virus? Audience, if you have answers, please answer, because this is great. Maybe I am an extreme introvert, almost to the point of being a shut-in sometimes. People don't get that from my personality because I am a performer. And I think that that can be dangerous in a way. You spend too much time alone. But when you're alone and you have nothing but free time, you know, in your mind, you end up learning a lot, thinking a lot, writing a lot. And I think that can be a powerful negative and a powerful positive.
Yeah, Dylan, you should have gone, because that was a really great answer. You should
I'm not introverted though. I'm extremely extroverted. I wouldn't have.
I have one. Oh, Dylan, you're gonna go second.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think I have a very addictive personality, which is pretty general. But like, I think right now I'm just drinking just so much caffeine at all hours. It'll be like 2 a.m. and I'm like, I should make another pot of tea. Yeah, that's just gonna work out. And it's I guess a virus in the sense that I don't sleep properly in any capacity. The benefit of it is oh man, this is some galaxy brain shit right here. So I'm extroverted, so it's hard for me to focus when people are around, right? Especially during the day. I need time alone to get actual work done, like animation or work that we do for the show. If I'm up all night from drinking just unholy amounts of caffeine, I'm up and I can get those things done. I will take my award now for that explanation.
What a walk. That's a good one.
Okay, so I actually have a question because when you were telling us about this, Deanna, like one of the things that you mentioned actually is that most viruses are vectors, meaning like they're mostly harmless. So you said something earlier that you said, oh, they mostly kick our ass, but sometimes they're good. I mean, based on that fact that, right, most viruses are vectors, is it the opposite? Like, can you tell us about that? Like how
Okay,
how many?
so
Yeah.
when most people think about viruses, right, they only think about the ones that hurt. So and a lot of people don't know that like a good chunk of the world is viral, like viruses, right? So when I said that, I meant like the ones that people are aware of.
Right.
There are billions of viruses out there. I mean, like we haven't even touched the bottom of the ocean, right? So we don't know what's down there. We don't know what's going on down there. So most of the viruses, when you think of it on like an earthly scale, yeah, a good percentage of them are vectors because if they weren't, we'd all be dead, right? Because there's a lot of things like if there's a good thing, like there's things that get into our body and we're not aware of it because we don't get sick, right? We only go get checked out when we start coughing and sneezing and flu and all that. But there are plenty of things, not just in humans, but in plants and animals that get into them that do absolutely nothing. And the only reason why you would know that is if you basically like slice someone up and just looked at every part of them. But we can't do that as humans. But when I said that to you guys earlier, it was just looking at the grand scheme of viruses. What I was saying, like most of them kick our ass, are the ones that kick our ass. The ones that people are more commonly familiar with: the flu, the cold,
So
COVID-19, things like that.
Is vector subjective, right? Is one species is vector, is another species is villain?
I mean, I would think so, right? I don't know any examples off the top of my head, but it's one of those things like, oh, well, some things can infect us, but not infect others, and it has to be vice versa, right? Like there has to be some things that get into us that will absolutely wreck, like a Venus flytrap or something.
Wasn't Vector the name of the villain in Despicable Me, or one of them? Maybe I'm crazy. I'm trying to tie it all back to movies.
What's your virus, Colin? Did I miss it?
No, I didn't. No, we started talking about deep sea viruses, and I'm just imagining them like as terrifying as deep sea fish. No, I think my virus. You bought me more time to think about it. But I think it's so. I love to cook, but the problem is I love to cook like more and more difficult dishes. Like we're watching like America's Test Kitchen. Like, oh, here's a way to make your own, puff pastry and make this huge, beef Wellington or some shit. And so I'll like spend most of our grocery budget on this crazy meal, and it'll probably be okay because I'll like forget one step or whatever. But it's good because then I learn how to work with different ingredients, how to work with different cuisines and stuff, so that it expands the culinary portfolio. As long as I don't, again, make us eat rice and beans for the last half of the month. But
I'm sorry,
I think that's
was
my
that a
part.
pun when you said? Did you say culinary or did you say culinary?
Ooh, it was unintended, but I like it.
That is a good pun. All right, so we are getting pretty close to the end of our show.
No, wait, hold up.
Go ahead.
Wrap it up. I had a question for
all right,
Colin, and then we can look at the chat. It was about shingles. Can you give if someone gets shingles, like let's say I interact with someone with shingles, do I get shingles or I get chicken pox?
At your current age?
Yeah.
That's a good question. So you would
29. I'm not a teenager.
I'm not trying to dox you live. No, that's a good question. So you would be infected with the virus that would cause both. I think because it's not in your ganglia, if it were to establish an infection, it would cause chickenpox. But the problem is that chickenpox for children and chickenpox for adults are two very different things, like danger level wise, and that's because the adult and the child immune system are fairly different composition wise, and that's a whole other topic. So you would probably get chickenpox, but it would be a much more dangerous version of chickenpox than like 12-year-old get. No. Yeah, so don't go, just like patting
just
shingles
rubbing my
face
back on shingles.
You gotta stop that, man. It's not a good habit.
But But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Alex. Did we want to look at the chat for a second here to answer questions, or?
We want to wrap it up. So I wanted to see if Colin or Deanna wanted to respond to each other's pieces before we wrapped it up, just to see if you guys had thoughts about what you were talking about.
Right.
I want to jump in on this because I do have something, because I'm so glad you brought up superheroes, and especially Marvel superheroes. So if you've ever watched the Captain America movies, how I describe Shingles in or VZV is like Hydra. So like in the first Captain America movie, Hydra's all over the place, World War II, Nazis, etc. That's chickenpox. But then it goes undercover, it infiltrates SHIELD. And then the Winter Soldier is when you get shingles, and the shit's a lot worse. It's been there forever.
Oh, that's sick.
So it's a perfect combo. High five. We need to start a virus podcast where I talk about dark shit, and you bring us back, and you're like, viruses are good too.
Yeah. So I was actually going to bring up the fact that you brought up like reboots, right? Because viruses go through so many reboots, and they just adapt faster than we do, right? And it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of things that they make terrible reboots of. Like I was telling these guys like last week that they are making like a reboot of like the Powerpuff Girls, but it's gonna be like live action. And you realize how bad that is, right? So that's like, if that's like a COVID-19 variant, right? It's bad. But they do that with a lot of stuff. Like I don't know anything that has been like super original in like a few years. And it's all, they just keep making like the same stuff. Like the day they try to remake Harry Potter, that's the worst virus ever. Yeah. So I thought that was like, it was really interesting. It's like the greatest way to explain it to people. Like when they reboot Friends, people are gonna lose their mind, right?
Well, don't bring that up on us.
Yeah. So I loved it. I was like, I love this. This is great. Because then you had like Batman Begins, and then you had Fantastic Four, and I was like, so bad. So bad.
Okay, so yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and end the stream. We're going to stay on the chat for another minute or two if anyone has any questions. But Colin or Deanna, let's start with Colin, then Deanna. Where can people find you if they want to know more about what you do?
Come visit Portland, Oregon. I don't actually have any social media, but I need to work on that.
Social media?
No, I got off the stuff because I'm an introvert. And it was messing with my head. But I don't know. Keep looking for science communication stuff like this, or Science Riots, Science Talk, or Science on Tap, Portland, Oregon. I'm going to be trying to do more of this kind of stuff. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that.
That rules.
I mean, at least get Instagram, Colin.
I've been told Instagram is like the least mind screwy one. I might get on that. Yeah, I'll share all my fancy cooking failures.
So I am on Instagram, Facebook. Please don't message me on Facebook. I never look at it. And then I have a Twitter, all under the same name, which is like Deanna Clemmer. Yeah, I was telling these guys like last week, I'm trying to be on like TikTok under the name like Edible Science, but I'm trying to like, and it's basically like this idea of combining like food and science together, right? Because that's like two of my favorite things. So I have like a few, right now they're all food videos of me getting like, I hope my boss isn't watching, like I get like drunk on a weekend and then I'll like make food, right? So there's like these very random things of like sushi or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, and this is like a sell, So there's that. I am going to start like putting, because I have a lot of like science songs, like I just remix songs with like science lyrics. So I'm gonna start putting that out there, and then I'm just gonna like delete every app so I don't get responses. But definitely like Twitter, I definitely like to reply to that stuff. And I mean, if you guys are ever in upstate New York, like real upstate, like Syracuse area, that's where I live. Actually, I live like 40 minutes north of that, where there's like nothing.
You're just gonna tell people to come find you.
Yeah, come find me.
I'm gonna drop a pin in the chat, and everyone just show up.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. There's places to eat here. It's great.
We have something called food. Speaking
cool.
of food, we are Science the Show. So you can see all of our social hashtags just below our logo. So we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, also on Venmo. If you guys decide that we deserve a little bit of money, it's fine. There are so many better causes to donate
This
to.
is an important cause. There were literally kids in here. You know how much anxiety I got when I was like, no, they're not supposed to come in. I'm kidding. I'm so happy you
Toss a
came.
coin to your science communicators.
Yeah, I wish that I looked like Henry Cavill. Thank you guys for showing up. Find us all over social media, and we can't wait to talk to you again soon. Bye.